What is going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another video. Hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. Share this out, do all the good stuff. We're trying to reach 2,000 subscribers as fast as possible, so share out, do all of the good stuff. Share out to your dog, cat, friend, best friend, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever. Share it out and do us all a favor. We appreciate it. So I kind of wanted to wait a couple weeks after free agency, just a little tad bit before the draft to do a video like this and prepare for it, because there's always signings that happen in that free agency dead period between that time and the NFL draft, and this is kind of the dead period, and the Giants signed some guys, but it's nothing major. But we're going to talk about the major signings by the Giants. We're also talking about some depth signings in this video. And I want to grade Joe Schoen's 2024 free agent class, his third with the New York Football Giants as general manager. So we're going to go from major to minor, and I'm going to grade guys individually. With depth, guys like Aaron Stinney and some of the depth guys that Joe Schoen signed, I'm not really going to grade them. I'm just going to talk about it and maybe grade the depth as a whole as far as, Joe Schoen's job with that. But let's get into it. So I will include Brian Burns as part of the free agency period for the New York Giants, because it was really the biggest move of the offseason for Big Blue. Now, they gave up 39 overall and a fifth-round pick in 2025 to go get Brian Burns. I know we've talked about Brian Burns before, this, that, and the other thing, whatever, right? But Brian Burns brings instant credibility to your defense. He brings instant credibility and help to Kayvon Thibodeaux. A lot of people this season were questioning whether Kayvon Thibodeaux could be a number one pass rusher, whether the consistency was there. And also, you didn't have Azeez Ojulari on the field as much, which does not help. And with this move, with Brian Burns coming in, you kind of have that position where, hey, listen, Azeez Ojulari, he's on his last year of a rookie contract. We don't got to cut him. He could just be depth and come in as a situational guy. And I think Shane Bowen will know how to use Ojulari in those type of situations. And again, Brian Burns, this is a guy who is a very good pass rusher. Now, I don't think he's at the Khalil Mack prime stages. I don't think he's the Myles Garrett prime stages, but he is a number one pass rusher for the New York Giants. And he was with the Carolina Panthers. There's no need to discredit him, this, that, and the other thing. He was the number one pass rusher for the Panthers for so many years. And fun fact, he was in the same draft class as Daniel Jones, but whatever with that. And also Drew Lock, too. You got to add that in. But he's been in the league for a few years. The Giants signed him to a contract. He's still only 25, so he's got a 5-year contract, $141 million, $87 million guaranteed. Could go up to, I think, 150 with incentives, but again, that's year-based. So he's still a young guy. He's in his prime. The way this conventional system is going to use him, he could rack up a lot of sacks. And especially if this Giants secondary gets a little bit better with some adjustments, I honestly can't wait for Brian Burns to be on the field. And I would rather have gotten Brian Burns than to, go out there and draft a pass rusher, right? This draft class isn't great with pass rushers. I don't know how many of those guys will actually end up being better than a guy like Kayvon Thibodeaux. So getting Brian Burns with that 39 and giving up a fifth-round pick, it's not bad. Plus, you think about it this way, and in an analytical sense, Joe Schoen kind of trades players for players. Kadarius Toney, all the picks, they're used for Darren Waller. Now, that didn't work out as of right now. And also, when they traded Leonard Williams, they got the picks and traded it for Brian Burns. Basically, that's what it was. So, as far as the Brian Burns thing, I'm going to go ahead and say A-. I think this is the best move of the offseason for the New York Giants. Moving over to Jon Runyan, the first signing of the free agent period, an exterior signing for the New York Giants. Jon Runyan from the Green Bay Packers, 26 years old. In 2023, he had a down year. But statistically, 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 13 pressures, 7th for guard pass block efficiency, 10th in 2022 and 8th in 2021. And also, he's versatile a little bit with the interior. He doesn't play center, but he played 1,611 snaps at left guard during his career and 1,709 at right guard. And he also played tackle in college, which is something to put out there just in case the Giants needed some emergency tackle. But I think they already got that taken care of. My problem with Jon Runyan, just me, is the running game. Now, it does show that the Giants are going to be a little bit better of a passing offense. At least they want to be, right? Because when they brought Ezeudu in, when they brought Glowinski in, when they brought Feliciano in, those guys were better in the running game. They were not great in the passing game. They weren't even good in the passing game in terms of blocking. But bringing a guy like Jon Runyan in, he's coming in here, hasn't allowed a lot of sacks, not a lot of penalties. Again, not great in the running game, but it kind of shifts the philosophy, at least in my opinion, the way I see it. But again, the running game, not too convinced with that, and I think he does struggle a little bit against the higher competition, which again, we'll see where he places on the offensive line, because guess what? It's really up in the air as of this moment, because Neal could start at right guard and Eluemunor could start right tackle. There's a lot of variables that could go on from now until September, and even during the season. He was signed to a 3-year, $30 million contract, $17 million guaranteed. I think $10 million a year AAV is okay. I'm going to actually be a little harsh on this one. I'm going to grade it as a C. I would have liked a balanced guard, but at least the way I think about things, the way I think about football now, it's a passing league. He's better as a pass blocker than a run blocker, but hopefully Carmen Bracillo knows how to balance that out. And we move to another offensive lineman. This was predictable for a lot of people. Jermaine Eluemunor, 29 years old, 6 sacks, 28 pressures, 14 starts last year for the Las Vegas Raiders. Last 2 years under a guy by the name of Carmen Bracillo. Of course, we all know that name because he's a Giants offensive line coach, and that was the, connection. That was the connection to bring him over here. And I projected in my free agent video, I think it was, or it wasn't a free agent video, it was a mock offseason. It was something similar to his actual contract. It was like 2 years, $14 million that he actually got. And I like Eluemunor because he's not the best, right? He's not all pro, but he's versatile and he plays well at both positions. At guard, he's pretty good in the running game. At tackle, he's also very good in the running game. He's a solid pass blocker. So it gives the Giants wiggle room in terms of, okay, if Evan Neal's not good as a tackle, he moves to guard, and Eluemunor can move to right tackle for 2 years and then bring a tackle in or do whatever. And then if Neal is good at right tackle under Bracillo, Eluemunor can play right guard or left guard or however they see fit. But this guy already loves being a Giant. If you've seen his Twitter, I think the offseason program is actually beginning very, very shortly. So as far as that goes, Eluemunor is excited to be a Giant. He was a Giants fan growing up, I believe. He asked Eluemunor for the number 72, and he got it. I'm going to grade this a B+. I think this is one of the better signings of the offseason for the New York Giants. Moving over and slowly edging out of the top-tier signings, talk about Devin Singletary. And there were two guys that were linked, former Buffalo Bills. If Saquon Barkley was going to leave, these guys could possibly become New York Giants, Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. I predicted the other guy, Zach Moss, to be a Giant. I was wrong. Devin Singletary, 4 touchdowns, 898 yards, 216 attempts last season for the Houston Texans. And, they also had Dameon Pierce last year, and now they have Dameon Pierce and Joe Mixon. A lot of different things going on there. But Singletary, he's a solid back. Not too bad of a contract, 3 years, $16.5 million. That's just a little over 5, and they obviously have that contract maneuvered out to help the Giants' cap situation. He's not Saquon Barkley, but he's an efficient running back. Solid guy to catch out of the backfield. And as far as rushing goes, again, he's efficient. He's not a home run hitter by any stretch of imagination, but he can create those long plays. His longest run was 24 yards last year. His longest career run is 51. So again, he's not going to hit the home run for you, but if you're at the 20-yard line, you hand it off to Singletary or you toss it to Singletary, you have guys cracking, pulling out in front, he's probably going to get in the end zone. He can make guys miss on occasion, but again, he's more of an efficient running back to kind of hold the fort until a new running back comes in. If the Giants draft a running back, if they like Eric Gray for a long period of time, I don't know how that's going to end up, but we'll see. I think this signing is a B, personally me. And this is the last one I really will grade because the other signings are just depth, and I'll grade the depth overall. This one is Drew Lock. Now, a lot of conflict and controversy with the quarterback position. Are the Giants going to draft a quarterback? Are they not going to draft a quarterback? The thing that John Schneider, the current Seattle Seahawks GM, put out on radio is that Drew Lock decided to sign with the Giants of the Seahawks because he was going to have a chance to start at quarterback. Now, that could be true, that could be false. I don't see why it wouldn't be true, because sometimes GMs do say the right thing and they are truthful about a lot of things. But also, it would just be weird, because how much is Drew Lock better than Daniel Jones? And I'm not going to go into this quarterback debate, but as I mentioned before, how much better is Drew Lock better than Daniel Jones? If you wanted to get some guy really to compete with Daniel Jones after the year he had last year, I would have spent a little bit more money at the quarterback position rather than just get a guy like Drew Lock, who, he did solid last year, 3 touchdowns, 3 INTs. He's a gunslinger. He's a second-round pick, so he didn't work out in Denver with all the shit they had going on. He's a gunslinger. He's a risk taker, but that doesn't mean he's a good quarterback. Turns over the ball. Last 2 years, not too much playing time again, but obviously went over to Seattle and all these other different things. Anyway, as far as that goes, I'm going to give it a B- because I think it's a good signing for a backup, but there's a lot of tail points into it. There's a lot of variables that have to be figured out. And I know you really shouldn't grade the backup quarterback position, but is Daniel Jones going to start? Is Drew Lock going to start and they will sit Daniel Jones kind of like they did Russell Wilson in Denver? Is there going to be a rookie coming in here? So you kind of have to weigh it out a little bit. And also, Drew Lock does have a little bit of an injury history. Not that he's played a ton of games over the course of his career, because he hasn't been a starter. But I remember there was a few games he was out a couple of years ago. Again, just something to point out, not as much as Daniel Jones, but I'm going to say B-. So quickly, just to go over some of the depth signs that the New York Giants made, we'll start at the O-line with Aaron Stinney, Austin Schloedman, and Matt Nelson. Aaron Stinney gave up 2 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, and 25 pressures and 11 starts in 2023. The Bucs had a maneuvering. They maneuvered a lot of guys on the O-line due to injury. I think Robert Hainsey was one of the guys that was on the interior. 6'3", 312, 30 years old. Pass blocking efficiency, not great. It was in a very bad percentile, 63 out of 85. As far as he goes, depth signing, the Giants let go of Ben Bredeson. He went to the Tampa Bay Bucs, and Stinney came to the Giants. So this is a guy who's going to compete in training camp with a guy like Josh Azudu, with a guy like Marcus McKeithen, and really compete. And I'm pretty sure, do not count me on it, but he might play a little bit of center. But we don't really need to worry about that. So that's Aaron Stinney for you. The next guy, we actually played against him, I think, once or twice. I don't remember if Bradbury went in that one game against the Vikings in the playoffs. Well, he was with the Vikings in the playoffs, but we were facing the Vikings in the playoffs in 2022. I remember the first game he was in there, he's kind of getting dominated by Dexter Lawrence. 6'6", 328 years old. 1 sack, 1 hit, 5 pressures allowed in 23 and 22. 1 sack, 4 hit, 10 pressures. He started 3 games in 23 and 4 games in 22. Pass blocking efficiency mid in 2023, but actually the worst out of centers in 2022. So as far as Schloedman goes, another depth signing, a guy who's going to compete. And he's got a couple legs up right now because he is the backup center. I don't think there's a lot of guys on this roster currently that can play center other than John Michael Schmitz. So we move over one more time for the O-line, and we're going to go to Matt Nelson. He visited with the Giants and came in 6'7", 315, 28 years old. 2023, 2 starts, 1 quarterback hit, 1 pressure. 2021, he didn't play a lot in 2022. 2021, 11 starts, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, and 34 pressures. Not great. His 2024 pass blocking efficiency was ranked 6th for offensive tackles, but in 2021, as far as that goes, he was second to last, which is pretty bad. So overall, those are the O-line signings. Again, I'm not going to grade it until we go over the other guys. The next guy is Jalen Mills. He was a guy who was a former corner for the Eagles. I think he was with the Texans for a year or two, and he was also with New England where he played safety last year, and I think he played multiple years in New England, but nonetheless, he played, safety with New England last year. 35% deep, 30% box and slot, and 5% for outside corner. He's a versatile guy. Some good things about him: sticky in man coverage and makes amicable plays in the running game, but he didn't play well at safety and zone coverage. It's instincts, it's mental mishaps in his first year of trying to learn the position, kind of like Curtis Riley stuff, if you guys remember that. That was with New England last year. And also specifically in coverage as far as that goes, He had 8 starts, 1 touchdown allowed, 60% completion percentage, 225 yards, 94.4 passer rating, and that is as far as that goes. So he's a guy that's probably going to compete for one of the backup safety spots. I really don't take him too seriously in terms of, oh my God, he's a threat to this guy. I think the Giants will need to address safety a little bit more in terms of priority at some point with a better player than Jalen Mills, because Pinnock and Belton, they're solid guys, but I don't know if you could go into the season with that starting duo. Mills is 30 years old, and he's going to be, again, competing back up for the roster, along with Javarius Owens and whoever else they bring in. So we move to the 2 tight ends, and this is going to be interesting. I'll do a video on Darren Waller in a couple of days maybe. But the Giants signed 2 blocking tight ends at a similar amount of money, Chris Manhertz and Jack Stoll. Manhertz has been around Denver, Jacksonville, Carolina, and New Orleans. And again, not too many touchdowns. He's got 2 in his career. Not too many catches either. He's got a total of 26. He's a vet. But at the same time, this man blocks like a absolute road grader, like a madman. If you watch some of the highlights and some of the film that's been put on Twitter of Chris Manhertz, he is a very good blocking tight end. And that's where the Giants kind of confuse you with the philosophy a little bit. But the Giants had a lot of tight end issues last year where they're getting guys in and out, really the last 2 years. But getting a guy like Chris Manhertz and helps out Daniel Bellinger to where, Manhertz can block and pass protection, and Bellinger, could be in the passing game, and he doesn't have to do shit all himself. Now, the next guy is Jack Stoll, who was with the Eagles for the longest time. He was their tight end 2/3. Grant Calcaterra is there, so they really didn't need to keep Jack Stoll. And again, another blocking tight end, 20 career catches, no touchdowns to this date, 183 yards. And a total of 50 games played in his career over the past 3 years. He's about 25, 26 years old. As far as Manhertz, he's 31, 32 years old. So 1 young guy, 1 older dude, but coming in for the same purpose. And also, it's not necessarily guaranteed that either of these guys make the roster, but they could come in if Waller retires, if he doesn't retire, whatever the case may be, and play solid roles. So we move down. We got 2 more guys to go through. It's Isaiah McKenzie. This guy, we thought the Giants were going to sign him a couple of years ago. It didn't happen. With Indy last year, he didn't get a lot of playing time. 82 total yards on 11 receptions, 7.5 yards per reception, 78.6 catch percentage. And he also did some punt returns and kick returns for the Indianapolis Colts last year. He played in a total of 13 games. And he really got the brunt of slot reps once Cole Beasley was pretty much out of Buffalo. That was obviously in the 21-22 range. And, his best career year, 423 yards, 42 receptions, 4 touchdowns. That was 2022 with Buffalo under Ken Dorsey, 64.6 catch percentage. The problem with him is, while you do see, he's a shifty guy, he's a fast guy, he plays special teams, he does have a drop problem. He had 6 drops in 2022 with the Buffalo Bills, 3 the year prior. Only 1 last year with Indy, but again, he wasn't really valued in the receiving game. And this is a veteran minimum signing as far as that goes. So he's going to come in, he's going to compete with Gary Brightwell, he's going to compete with the backup receivers, he's going to compete with Gunnar Olszewski for the kick return, punt returner role. That's what I expect out of Isaiah McKenzie, and, it's already a few years down in his career. I would have considered him a guy to make the roster as a definite if he got signed in 22 or something like that, but obviously that was not the case. And he is now 28, 29 years old, and the Giants have better talent receiver. So finally, we'll cap it off with something that happened most recently. That is Isaiah Simmons. Last year, not great coverage stats. He did have an interception, though, which was a pick 6 off of Sam Howell, 81.9 passer rating, no touchdowns allowed, 81.5 completion percentage, 199 yards. Mostly a special teamer for the Giants, 49% on special teams. He had a forced fumble, a pass deflection, a quarterback hit, and a fumble recovery. He did force a fumble on special teams against the Eagles, and he also played 33% of the defensive snaps, mostly in on a 3rd down. Like we saw, how many times against Washington he was making those tackles. He was a blitz piece. Wink Martindale really liked him, which honestly is a reason why I didn't see him coming back to the Giants, because I didn't think Shane Bowen was going to be as creative with him. He's not necessarily a linebacker type guy. He's more interchangeable with the safeties, with the pass rushers a little bit, but more stable with those guys in terms of Bowen's scheme. than Wink Martindale was with the pass rushers, of course, instead of, mixing them up in different spots. So I was a little surprised that the Giants brought back Isaiah Simmons, but they like him, as a locker room guy, kind of a sentimental thing. But we'll see. And also the Giants need linebacker depth. Carter Coughlin came back. Cam Brown did not come back. The Giants do need linebacker depth behind the guys of Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke. As far as depth goes, I'm going to give the depth part probably a B plus at best because, it's depth, right? You can't grade it high. I would say a solid B, right? Isaiah Simmons, you don't know what role he's going to play on the defense. McKenzie's going to compete. Mills is going to compete. Manhurts and Stoll, they're blocking tight ends. And Stinney, Schlodman, and what was the other guy I mentioned? Matt Nelson. Those guys are going to compete for backup roles. So, again, you really can't grade that. Again, solid B for the depth. But for overall free agency, I'll give the Giants a B+. The Brian Burns trade was pretty much a knockout of the park. Jon Runyan, solid signing. I would like to see a little bit more. Maybe Brasil could coach him up a little bit more. And Jermaine Eluemunor, he was one of the better and I would say he's a sleeper signing, right? Sleeper signing for the Giants. Could be a very good contributor at his price and at his caliber. But what do you guys think? How would you grade Joe Schoen's free agency? Also factor in, we lost McKinney. We lost a couple other guys. We lost Saquon Barkley. I think it's a B+. Let me know in the comments. Again, we're trying to get to 2,000 subscribers as best as possible. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon.